I know I'm a little early with this video, what with Cyno's banner not actually technically being out, but with update 4.2 having its banners announced with Furina, Ayato, Cyno and Baizhu, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about whether Cyno is actually worth pulling or not, because I find Cyno is a really interesting 5-star character, at least from my perspective, because about a year ago I did a video on do I actually regret pulling for Cyno, and for like 90% of the video I was really leaning towards yes. The last like 2 minutes of the video my opinion completely switched, and ever since then I've really had like a weird affinity for Cyno. But yeah, Cyno is going to have his own banner. I think it's with Ayato. Cyno is a very interesting character because Cyno came out at a time where I wanted a replacement for Razor. Used Razor as a main DPS for a very long time, but he couldn't be my main DPS forever. And Cyno was literally just, everyone just kind of said he's basically Razor but a 5-star. And now that we've had him for a while, that's not strictly true at all. He is very unique in his own special way, but that doesn't make him any less impressive. But he is a very weird character, and that's why he may not be for everyone. So we're gonna talk through him, and then we'll get into things a little bit more. So first of all, let's have a look at my Cyno and sort of see where I can speak about things from there. So as of right now, he's not particularly well built, as if you've watched any of my videos, you will know that's a pretty common theme with my characters. His attack could be way higher, his elemental mastery could also be more. He is currently sat in a team completely on his lonesome, so he's not getting buffs from anything. His crit rate, fairly happy with. Crit damage could be higher. So with Cyno, the great thing is when you ascend him, he does get crit damage. The biggest downside to Cyno is these awful scarabs. If you're planning on getting Cyno when he comes out at the end of, I think, November, start farming for these now, because good lord, these are the worst things in the world to farm. They are dreadful, and I hate farming them, and I hope to never have to do it again. In terms of weapons, I've currently got him with a Ballad of the Fjords, which is the new Battle Pass weapons that came with Fontaine. The reason I like it is because it increases his elemental mastery, which affects his passives, which we'll go into a moment. But you don't have to use this. The Deathmatch is a great alternative for more crit rate. If you already have a ton of crit rate, obviously something with crit damage is also a fantastic addition. Something like the Blackcliff Pole or the Deathmatch, just something with crit rate or crit damage, great option. I quite like the addition of the increase of elemental mastery that comes with this. So that's honestly the only reason I bought the Battle Pass, is because I wanted this to put on Cyno at the time. And I don't regret it. Whether it's better, I can't really tell, but I quite like having it on there. In terms of artifacts, he has the Thundering Fury set. The Thundering Fury set is perfect for him because it reduces his cooldowns, and with his burst being the way it is, you want to make sure that you have your E pretty much as ready as possible for whenever his, I think the something right shows up on screen. Again, we'll talk about it when it comes up. This is just a brief look at all of his artifacts. This is just an onset elemental mastery piece. He's got a little bit of elemental mastery. Again, we will talk about that shortly. Electro damage because electro damage, and crit damage because big numbers is what we want. In terms of constellations, he is C0, but his constellations are actually quite good. So his C1 basically just makes his normal attacks faster, which is what you'll be doing 99% of the time, and then occasionally pressing his elemental skill. His C2 just makes his electro damage deal more damage, essentially, and it stacks, just standard level up. This just activates Cyno as a battery for the rest of his team, which is lovely. Standard level up. And then we have this, which just gives him more Duststalker bolts, and just in general, just a ton more damage. So honestly, I don't really see any of his constellations that I particularly dislike. I'm quite happy with his constellations. I'm very happy with Cyno being at C0, but at C6, you also can't really go wrong. In terms of talents, he is 188. I really like Cyno. He's not crowned. He may be crowned one day, but in terms of his talents, his basic attack, almost non-existent. Don't put anything into it. It does not scale with his burst. Don't need to worry about it. His E, you do need to scale at the same sort of rate as his burst because it affects his mortuary right. Yeah, so you need to level this for his mortuary right. Very, very important part of the kit. And then, of course, his burst, you need to level up because that is where all of his hits come from. Then, of course, we have his passives. So this pretty much just says when he does his Mortuary Rite, which is his skill, it'll fire off 3 Duststalker bolts. And they'll deal 100% of Cyno's attack as electro damage, which is very nice. This is why you want to be timing your E as best as you possibly can, because it really does maximize his damage. And then the Duststalker Bolt does increase damage depending on his Elemental Mastery. So the higher Elemental Mastery, the Duststalker Bolt will do more damage. So that's why with him, you kind of do a bit of attack and a bit of Elemental Mastery, ideally, which is why he pairs perfectly with someone like Nahida, because Nahida is just like, here you go, have some free Elemental Mastery, and it is lovely. And then I think if you pair it with another Dendro unit, that's more Elemental Mastery, and then there you go, you've just given the man free Elemental Mastery and you didn't really have to do anything. So he does need attack and he does need Elemental Mastery, but that can easily be worked into his kit, and then this just gives him more Sumeru rewards. That's whatever. In terms of gameplay, he's a very fun character to play because you pretty much just burst and then you left click, and he has honestly some of the most fluid animations in the entire game. And then whenever that screen pops up, you Mortuary Rite, and then a bunch of stuff just explodes. As I was saying, honestly, the man has some of the most fluid burst animations in the game, and I think that's what makes playing him so much fun, is that his burst animations are just so incredibly smooth. And when that Mortuary Rite comes up and you just smack that elemental skill button and you just smack down with his Mortuary Rite, it is so incredibly satisfying. And the great thing about Cyno is that a lot of the time that he actually gets a fair amount of energy recharge while in his burst state, that a lot of the time he can just refill his burst by the time it's over. And with his burst being like, what? Cyno's burst lasts a maximum of 18 seconds. That is a very long time to be on the field. Now, that does bring me to one small problem that Cyno does have as a character. And that is, he does kind of require a team that can cushion him a little bit. So for instance, with characters like Xiangling or Kazuha, they only have ults that last for a few seconds at most. Xiangling's Pyronado lasts 10 seconds, but that is because she's C6. Without that, I think her Pyronado is, what, 6 seconds? And then someone like Kazuha, whose burst is only 8 seconds. With Cyno being on the field for so long, ideally, because you want him to get his burst back if you can, you kind of have to sort of choose your team a bit more carefully. I mean, of course you can use Xiangling and Kazuha in a team and it'll be fun. I'm sure it'll do the job. I don't doubt that for a single second, especially with Xiangling being as strong as she bloody well is. But it's not, you know, it's not the most optimal. And with Cyno being the way he is, if you've just spent a second doing Xiangling's burst and then Kazuha's burst, and then you're also doing Cyno's burst, and then maybe a fourth unit, you've already wasted like 2 or 3 seconds. And then by the time Cyno's like, you know, gotten up and ready to do his thing, all of those bursts are starting to, you know, they fizzle out, they're gone, they're done. So you kind of need to sort of build around him a little bit, which is unfortunate because it means some more unique teams may not be able to exist quite as well as something more standard. So for instance, like with Nahida, with her E, she can, you know, she'll camera swipe everyone and they'll basically be locked in to her Tri-Star, I can't remember what it's called, for like 35 seconds or something, which is a very long time. Baizhu's Dendro Shield, again, something that lasts about 14 seconds, I believe, if I remember correctly. So again, very long time, pairs great with Cyno. And then you can have someone like Yelan or Jingqiu, who also pairs great with Cyno, and I love them for that. But outside of them, you do have more limited options in terms of his burst, which is real unfortunate because I absolutely adore Cyno. Thankfully, you put Yelan and Jingqiu in any team and I'm going to have a great time, but that may not be the case for everyone. So you do need to keep in mind that when Cyno is bursting, or when you have Cyno in your team, that his burst takes a long precedent. He's very similar to Zhao, if I remember correctly. When Cyno came out, people had the same issue that they had with Zhao, which Zhao requires so much time to be on the field that he kind of takes over for the rest of the team, that you need to build around Zhao. And then Zhao needs to be the main sort of antagonist the entire time. And that's the same with Cyno. If you build a team around having Cyno on the field as much as possible, you will get a ton out of the character. If you don't, however, you're going to have less of a good time. On the upside though, Cyno looks fantastic and he feels great to play. And he is very much a character where you can pretty much just turn your brain off. You activate everyone else's bursts in the party, you activate Cyno's, and you just left click until stuff dies. And then eventually Mortuary Rite will show up on your screen, you slam the E key, and then boom, stuff dies. It's great. I love Cyno for that exact reason. I feel as compared to other characters though, he's less set-up-y and more brainless, and just go hard, see big number, have fun. Which is honestly the main reason I love him so much. He's a great character, I really enjoy him, but do keep in mind that you do really have to kind of build your team around how his burst works. Otherwise, you're just not going to have a great time. Because, let's be honest, I love Cyno, but if it's just him ulting, you're not getting as much DPS as you could be, which is a big, unfortunate case. But if you pair him with a half-decent team, the man will steer you right. So in terms of should you pull Cyno, you really have to ask yourself, do you have the characters to build around him, / do you like him enough to want to do so? I love Cyno, his gameplay is fantastic. If you look at Cyno and see a really fun character, then you 100% should pull him. But if you look at a character and go, he requires a little bit too much, I'm not sure hand-holding is the word, restriction. It's kind of like Nailu, where you can only have Hydro and Dendro characters on your team. But Cyno's kind of the same, except Cyno doesn't have that literal restriction. It's just as long as their burst has a long duration, then it's more beneficial for him. The shorter the burst, the less likely he is to work in the team. But I'm sure I can be proven wrong. And I'm sure there are great Cyno teams out there that are very rotation heavy, because you can make a team however you want in this game and it'll be fun, and that's honestly all that matters. But personally, I would keep that in mind on if you should pull Cyno. I think he's really fun. I think he's a great character to play. He's a really enjoyable 5-star Electro unit, but he does have that team restriction that you do need to keep in mind before pulling him. So if you're worried about the restriction, I would probably hold off. And if you're looking for a new 5-star Electro unit, we do have one coming up, I think in the form of Clorinde, I think it is, eventually. No idea when. But anyway, we're talking about Cyno today, and I hope that answered at least one person's should you pull question. I love Cyno. I think he's a great character, but I don't think he's for everyone. And if you don't absolutely adore his playstyle, he's not really a character you need. He is a very selfish character, but that kind of makes him also quite fun, depending on your perspective anyway. With that though, I think I'll say my dues. Thank you for those that stuck around to the end. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. I've been James, Mayor of JamessTown, and until next time, let me know what you think of Cyno, where I may do this again, depending on if I have a character I feel I can actually talk about. Until then though, goodbye.